Alright, yo, what's up guys? Luigi C here. Hope you enjoyed that Trigger, Giovanna's theme, bass playthrough. So now we're gonna go through a little tutorial. It's a really fun song to play. It's pretty easy for the most part, but there are some tricky areas that we're gonna go over. First off, if you want a printable, downloadable version of the tabs and sheet music associated with this, you can head on over to my newly launched Patreon. Link to that will be in the description. Subscribe at the tabs and sheet music tier to get access to the tabs and sheet music that I myself transcribed. Also, while you're there, check out some of the other tiers. Maybe they might interest you. There's a lot of cool stuff that I'm thinking up right now. And I'm probably going to put out a video that further details what's going to come with that Patreon, hopefully sometime next week. So keep a lookout on that Patreon introduction video. But if you want the tabs and sheet music for this tutorial that we're about to go over right now, hop on over there and subscribe to that tabs and sheet music tier. Alright, so before we start this tutorial, there's a couple of things that you got to know about this song. So the first, most obvious thing that I want to point out is I'm using a 5-string bass. If you're using a 4-string at home, that's perfectly fine. You can play this song on a 4-string, no problem. I never use the low 5th string. I'm just pointing that out because sometimes it can be confusing. If you're looking at someone playing a 5-string and you're playing a 4-string, it might not look exactly the same. So just be super aware of that I'm playing a 5-string right now. If you got a 4-string, it's going to look slightly different. Second, I'm using a pick for this. Primarily, I don't use a pick when I play bass. Usually, I'm primarily fingerstyle. But I feel like for this track, you really want that punch that a pick gives you. So, you know, I have a lot of students that ask me, oh, should I use fingerstyle? Should I use a pick? And my answer is always, you should be at least a little proficient at both. Because it's mostly about what the song is calling for. But if you don't have a pick, or you just are all fingerstyle, you can get away with doing a fingerstyle also. The third thing you might have noticed, I have some distortion on the bass. You know, listen to the track, there's definitely some distortion on that bass. Do you need it? Definitely not. You don't need the distortion. But for me, when you got that pick going, and you got the distortion going, I feel like that's how you really play for what the track is calling for. The last thing we got to point out about this before we can start playing some riffs, to play this song, you have to tune your bass down a half step. So instead of E, A, D, G, it's E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. Alright, so let's get into this intro riff. So this is definitely the most iconic riff of the track. This is probably the one that you're going to want to play to impress your friends. But unfortunately, it's one of the trickiest riffs to play in this entire thing. This intro riff is probably the hardest riff to play here. If you can get past this one, it's smooth sailing after it. But this first riff is definitely one of the trickiest ones. So it starts with 12 on the G string, and then 12 on the A string. So right off the bat, I kind of have some challenges because you have to play 12 on the G string, 12 on the A string. My first instinct was to just lay my first finger on all across those 3 strings and just play it like a bar. But this has a problem. If you do that, then all the notes are kind of bleeding into one another. And we don't want that. We don't want all the notes to bleed into one another. We want each note to be defined on its own. So what I kind of came up with is play the 12 on the G string, and then shift the weight of your finger off the G string and onto the A string. So you're kind of going back and forth, shifting the weight of your finger. All my weight's on the G string, now all my weight's on the A string, and that way you can get each note defined on its own. It's still really challenging not to get the notes to bleed into each other, but that's kind of the basic idea there. So you do that 3 times. Then on the 4th time, 14, 13, 12, 12, and then this little thing. 7, 8, 10, 8, 7. Notice how I'm shifting the weight across my first finger. Okay, so that first riff's kind of annoying to play, but once you get it down, it sounds really cool. This next riff is the same exact thing, but except down an octave. So now we're going to 5 on the D string, and then open A, which is an A flat because we tuned down a half step. And same thing before, you do that 3 times, and then you go to another part. So we got 7, 6, 5, and then open A, first fret on A, third fret on A, first fret on A, and then open A. That part's super fun. That whole part happens 3 times. Then you go to this little chorus, first fret on the E string, then third fret on the A string, third fret on the D string in this rhythm. Back into this. Back into that. And now check this out. I included a little fill. This track, the bass gets buried under the mix a lot. Some parts I just couldn't hear what was happening. So I kind of included just this one little fill. It's here to kind of get you started. If you want to investigate further, listen to the track and try to see what other fills are in there. And then you just go back into this. Twice. And then check this out. You go back into that intro riff also. The whole thing kind of loose. We're not going to go through it measure by measure, but listen to the track. From here on, kind of all the material just repeats. It's just a matter of knowing if it happens 3 times or 2 times, stuff like that. Now we get into the trigger part. It's pretty much the same riff. So instead of... And I'm going to put timestamps for when this happens in the track. So instead of... You go like this. So add in a little bit of groove to this riff. So we got 3, 5 on the E string, 3, 5... And then it's just the same as the second half of the main riff. So 5, 7, 5, 0, 5, 0, 5, 0, 5, 6. Make sure you get like a little bounce. And then the 4th time, just hang out on an A, so 5th fret on the E string. A, 3, 4, 5. They do that whole thing again, but this time on the 4th time, instead of doing this, you just do 1, 1. You'll hear it in the song. So make sure you're playing along with the record. This next verse, one of my favorite ones coming up, so we got... the way I view this is like half Limp Bizkit, new metal. But then this next part's like Whitesnake. Kind of represents Daisuke's sensibilities pretty well. But yeah, so we got 4, 5, 5 on the E string, then 5 on the A string, and then 5 on the E string. This next riff, I call this the Zeppelin Riff. There's a lot of riffs in this song. There's a lot of riffs in this song. That's why I'm kind of going a little bit fast trying to get through it. But I call this the Zeppelin Riff. Sounds like the ocean a little bit. So we got 7, 5. Watch out for that 7. This is this note harmonizes with what the guitar is doing, and it almost sounds like it clashes. You got 7, whereas the guitar is going like 3 or something like that. I'm not sure what the guitar is doing, but this 7 is going to kind of be a harmony note. Might not sound exactly right, but pretty sure this is what they're doing. So 7, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 3, 5. Then you got 7 on the D string to 5 on the A string. That's an octave. And then a little climb up. 2, 2, 3, 4. This next part, I love this part. I call this the jam section. So the guitarist is doing like, you know, the main riff, but the bass isn't doing that. The bass is doing just kind of grooving. Into that again. 7, 6, 5, 0, 1, 3, 1, 0. Yeah, but the bass kind of just grooving 5 on the E string, 3 on the E string, then 7 on the D string. So that's the octave of the A. Then you do it again 3 times. Then check this out. It doesn't stop there though. This next part's crazy sounding, but it's pretty simple on bass. So we started on 7. Well, what happens is he moves everything up a minor third. So this 7, move it up to 10, and just go down chromatically. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 6 on the E string to 5 on the E string, and then another 5. So, okay, pretty cool. So that whole little part. And that's pretty much all the riffs, except for one last variation here. I'll put the timestamp to when this happens in the song. It goes to this little weird, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like this random chord progression just in the middle of the whole thing. Then just kind of like a simple climb. So yeah, that was a little tutorial of Trigger Giovanna's theme. If you need that sheet music and the tab, fully notated sheet music, 16th notes, 8th notes in bass clef with the tab. So you get both. You get the sheet music and the tab. Hit up that Patreon. Subscribe at the tabs and sheet music tier to get access to that. Follow in this video. You can follow along with the sheet music. Check out the other tiers over there. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like the video. Other than that, it's going to do it for me. I'll catch you next time. Peace.